Hi, I'm Claudia St. President of Affinity HR Group. We are your HR partner and resource. Recently, I had the opportunity to sit down with Lisa Ritchie, our VP of Recruiting and Talent Selection, to see what she was experiencing when headhunting and recruiting for top talent in the current labor market. Here's part 2 of that conversation. What do you think that companies that are looking to hire and are doing it themselves, what do they need to do maybe differently? Are there any different things that they need to be aware of when they're doing a hire, or things that you and the recruiting team are doing differently given COVID?
Well, I think there's, so I'm going to try to answer this question.
I should have given you to them beforehand, but then again, let's put you on the hot seat.
So I think the thing that I want to make sure that people out there understand about hiring now is there's a little bit of a misconception in that because unemployment is higher and there's more people on the market, that they can, kind of have their pick of people and or can take their time making their decisions. And I think that that is something to really be leery of, because as I said earlier, good people, we still have multiple offers on the table for most of the candidates that we end up placing. Now, luckily, because we have such great clients, we win more of those than we lose. But the biggest pitfall is gaps in the process. So if you find somebody that you really like, don't skip steps. Don't rush through it per se, but definitely keep the process moving, because somebody else might nab them before you get your shot at them. So that's probably the biggest thing that I'm seeing right now.
And I imagine that is a big misconception. People think like, oh, well, there's a lot of talent out there, so we can be really selective. But if they're good talent, everybody's looking for them. That makes sense. So maybe
the other thing too with, and we certainly have talked about this a lot pre-COVID, but it's certainly important now too, is the rule of thirds and really taking advantage of looking at the experience level, the background, looking at the assessments. We use behavioral assessments and they're very important. And then also the reference checks and how do they show up, and do you like them? Do you feel like they would fit in with your culture? So try not to put too much weight on any one of those, and really use all of that to make a good quality hiring decision. Your gut.
I'm going to wrap that up, just because what we talk about when we deal with our clients when we're preparing for a hire is the rule of thirds, that the hiring decision should be based equally on one of these 3 decisions. One is their experience, right? Their resume, what they've done in the past. Did you like them? Were they personable? Do you think they would fit in culturally with your organization? And then that behavioral testing. So yeah, that's a great reminder for making those hiring decisions. So just one last question, and maybe you've already given it to me, in which case you're going to have to come up with something different. This is always fun. I love putting you on the hot seat. What is one piece of advice that you would give to businesses who are contemplating hiring somebody at this moment in time?
I think it's the same piece of advice I would give at any point. A lot has changed in the way that we do business with COVID, but frankly, there are some things that certainly have stayed consistent. And it kind of goes back to not skipping, not dragging out the process. But we get a lot of questions about when to start the hiring process. Mm-hmm. And so I think when you're thinking about getting started, you need to be in a position as much as possible that you can focus some attention sometimes, so that you don't have those gaps in employment or those gaps in the steps of the process.
Right.
So, it's an important piece of what makes a business tick. You got to hire the right people. So you need to invest some time in that.
Right. And you've been doing some benchmarking with clients to really hone in more carefully on what they're looking for before they start that sort of imagining step of the hiring process before they go into the hiring process. And I know you're really, you're very tenacious about making sure that that the clients have all of those pieces done and that homework done before you execute, because they really need to be focused and ready to make decisions once you're out there, sourcing and delivering potential candidates.
Yeah. And benchmarking is great, really for all positions. And we do a little bit of that with every hire, every recruiting project that we take on, but definitely for positions that are multiple hires. So if you think you're going to hire 5 to 7 salespeople in the next 2 years, benchmarking it to have that, that place to start as far as the behavioral style and the motivators and the driving forces. That can be really good, and using the people that are really heavy hitters or really very successful within your organization to establish that benchmark is great. Or our positions, higher level positions that are, I think all positions are critical to a business, but the ones that are especially critical, the VPs, the directors of operations, things like that. I think those are important to benchmark on the front end.
Got it. Well, it's been lovely talking with you, Lisa. Thank you for sharing the hot seat with me. And for those of you who don't know Lisa, Ritchie's been with us from the very beginning. She is a very seasoned recruiting specialist and runs a great team and is just one of my best friends also. So thank you so much for all of your, and that's one of those things for employee engagement. They say that people who are highly engaged at work have a best friend. And I will say she's one of my best friends, but I never met her before I hired her. So she's just become that over the 10 years that Affinity's been in business. So thank you for joining us. So that's it for those of us at Affinity HR Group. If you have any questions about hiring or just want some tips and advice, please reach out to Lisa Ritchie. She's at Lisa@Affinity HR Group. And of course, you can always reach out to me, Claudia at affinityhrgroup.com, or contact@affinityhrgroup.com. We hope you have a lot of success in your hiring and recruiting activities. And in the meantime, we hope that you have a safe and productive work week. Take care.